Welcome to this video on environmental transmission pathways. Infectious diseases are a main cause of mortality and morbidity in humanitarian crises. Tackling them is one of the main goals of public health engineering interventions. In order to do so, a good understanding of transmission cycle of diseases is required. This is why during this video you will learn to classify different infectious diseases according to their transmission routes. Get familiar with the so-called F diagram. And finally, you will learn to identify appropriate prevention strategies to tackle some infectious diseases. In public health engineering, we often use the so-called Bradley classification to distinguish four types of water-related routes by which a disease may be transmitted from one person to another. Waterborne diseases are infections which can be transmitted through drinking water which contains the pathogens. Waterborne diseases include diarrheal diseases, which is the second leading cause of death in children under 5 years old and is responsible for killing more than 500,000 of children every year. It also includes infectious hepatitis or polio. All these diseases are part of the so-called fecal-oral diseases. That is, to say that infections occurring when pathogens from the feces of a sick person are ingested by somebody else. There are many different pathways for the feces containing the pathogens to gain entry into the mouth, such as direct and others indirect. The F diagram illustrates these main pathways. They are easily memorized as they all begin by the letter F. Fluids, such as drinking water, fingers, flies, fields for crops and soil, and food. In order to stop the transmission of these diseases, primary barriers can be put to prevent the initial contact with the feces. It is mainly done with sanitation interventions which aim to contain human excreta so that it is not free to spread into the environment. Secondary barriers can also be put to prevent feces from being ingested by a new person. For instance, by ensuring adequate water quality, or ensuring proper hygiene practices, mainly hand washing. In this F diagram, you can clearly see the importance of having adequate sanitation, proper hygiene practices, and adequate quantity and quality of water to ensure health benefits. The second type of water-related diseases are water-washed diseases. Infections that are caused by pathogens whose transmission can be prevented by improving personal hygiene. Good personal hygiene requires the availability and use of water for bathing, clothes washing, and utensil washing. Therefore, the transmission mechanism is related to the quantity of water rather than water quality. There are three types of water-washed diseases. The ones associated with the fecal route with similar diseases to waterborne diseases. Infections of skins or eyes that are not related to the fecal-oral routes but also due to poor hygiene, such as trachoma, which is the leading infection caused by blindness worldwide. And finally, infections carried by lice and which may be reduced by improving personal hygiene, such as typhus. The third type of water-related diseases is called water-based. Here, the pathogen spends part of its life cycle in the water, usually in a snail or another aquatic animal. Pathogens usually enter the water from feces and urine of an infected person. The pathogen is transmitted by ingestion or by penetration of the skin. The water-based diseases are all caused by parasitic worms. But not all parasitic worms are water-based, but two of the most significant are the Guinea worm and the schistosomiasis. Schistosomiasis affects millions of people each year. People become infected when the larval forms of the parasite, released by freshwater snails, penetrate the skin during contact with infested water. Play habits of school-age children, such as swimming or fishing in infested water, make them especially vulnerable to infections. Finally, the fourth route of diseases spread by insects which breed in water or bite near water. Malaria, yellow fever, and dengue are diseases transmitted by this transmission mechanism. Knowing the transmission route for diseases helps to identify key interventions to be done to reduce the spread of diseases. For instance, to tackle waterborne diseases, we need to improve water quality by treating water, preventing its contamination. For water-wash disease, we have to increase access and availability of water to ensure better hygiene. For water-based, it is difficult to treat infected water surface bodies, but we can prevent people from getting into contact with them. For water-related insect vector, we can apply some vector control measures that we'll see further into details during this week. Unlike the conventional biological taxonomy, which classifies diseases according to the nature of their pathogens, in public health engineering, we prefer to classify infectious diseases according to their environmental transmission pathways. It is more helpful to identify the type of environmental measures needed. In this video, we have seen the Bradley classification to describe water-related diseases. But similar classification also exists for refuse-related diseases, vector-related diseases, or housing-related diseases, such as tuberculosis, which kills more than malaria worldwide. Remember, knowing the transmission cycle of the disease is key to identify the appropriate measures to be tackled.